The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Hello folks, welcome to a brand new county once again. Today we're in East Sussex. We've been to West Sussex before, but this is the first time TVI has set foot in its eastern counterpart. Now all this week we'll be doing a run between the towns of Lewes and Newhaven. One of them's close to Brighton and the A27, and the other one is on the English Channel. Between them there's quite a few lovely little villages, and this one is Kingston near Lewes. Kingston near Lewes, King's Farm near an injury. Hello out there everyone in East Sussex. So far on TVI we haven't done a single parish in your county, but by the end of this week there'll be 5 of them. We're doing a run between the town of Lewes and the English Channel resort of Newhaven, working our way along the western bank of the River Ouse. The 5 parishes we're visiting first of all have some great little stories to tell, some historic and some tragic. We'll touch more on the tragic later in the week, but let's get things started with the historic. This is Kingston near Lewes. First of all, let's sort that name out. King's Farm near an injury, that sounds ominous. It's got nothing to do with the hospital or anything like that though. Injury in this context refers to the topographic nature of the area we're in. At Lewes, the River Ouse flows through a fissure towards the sea. Lewes, which is an Old English word, literally means injury, as in a break in the landscape. I tell you, the things you find out on this channel are mad at times. Kingston near Lewes is very modern. It's a built-up village which has relatively little to do with the Ouse. Rather, its main talking point would be the story of the Jugs Road. If you know where to go, the route of the road can still be walked across the Sussex landscape to Brighton. Very many centuries ago, women would walk its length, and in this video we'll learn why. The place has a pub called the Jugs, paying homage to the path. It also has a church, a windmill, 2 schools, and even a recording studio. Let's see them all and more as we set foot in East Sussex for the very first time. We begin our walk around Kingston near Lewes at a school, and this village has 2 of those. This is the more run-of-the-mill type establishment, and it's located between 2 villages, Kingston and Iford. That's why it's called Iford and Kingston School. No frills stuff. It's a voluntary controlled Church of England primary school which is small, friendly and successful, emphasising its purposeful and engaging curriculum, strong community ties and nurturing environment. It's part of the Skylark Federation. It's a great place to start because it's right on the edge of Kingston's main village cluster. Let's head up Ashkam Lane, and as we walk we'll fill in a bit more about the place we're in. Kingston is located at the foot of the South Downs, some 2 miles south of Lewes. The lands that surround it today were originally organised from before the Norman Conquest in 1066 in 3 great open fields known as lanes. These were divided into strips and managed by different owners. The outlines of those fields can still be made out in the landscape today. Coupled with the pasture land on the downs above and the meadows in the valley of the River Ouse at the other end of the parish, they represent the basis on which the villagers' livelihood and security depended through the centuries, and they were the backdrop to their daily lives. That rhythm of agricultural life continued from Saxon times right through to the beginning of the Victorian period. The physical layout remained very much centred on the old main village street until after World War I, but it wasn't long before it started to grow and expand. New housing developments came along in the 1920s and 1930s, spreading along Kingston Ridge and the Avenue to the west and along Ashkam Lane, where we are now. Its agricultural character began to change and its population began to diversify. After World War II, a new phase of housing development began. Former farm buildings were remodelled as residences and new houses were built along Well Green Lane. In the last 50 years, the village has seen continuing development, both in terms of new housing and the conversion and extension of existing properties. This has been a continuous process as pressure for housing has grown nationally. As a mainly commuter village for Lewes and Brighton now, today's village reflects both change and continuity through the centuries. Wherever you look or walk, the past is still very much in the present, helping to define the village's identity and character. Okay, so lots of residential properties along this one street. You ain't seen nothing yet because Kingston has quite a few of those in its main housing estate, which we'll walk around in a bit. Now, there is one property along this road which looks like a normal house, but it's anything but. It's the one behind me you can see there. That's actually more than a house. It's actually a recording studio. Here's one thing that wouldn't have been in Kingston centuries back. You're looking at a house, you might think, but this is more than just a residence. This is Rallt Studio, the home of Jake Rousham. Rousham is a studio engineer, producer and composer with a career spanning some 25 years. He's worked with hundreds of artists and bands including Nick Cave, Royal Blood, The Levellers, Roger Daltrey, Wilco Johnson, Orbital, Asian Dub Foundation, The Stripes, Snow Patrol, Electra Lane and Electric Soft Parade, as well as many local and regional artists. He's worked in a massive variety of styles and genres including pop, rock, hip-hop, dance, folk, classical and more. He learnt his craft from people such as John Leckie, Chris Thomas and Dave Ehringer, and has worked in some legendary studios like Abbey Road, The Metway and Yellow Fish. In short, the guy knows what he's doing. After taking a right turn just after the studio, we're now on the Jugs Road, an ancient path that once ran all the way to Brighton. We'll get to its history in a moment, but just off its route is the gorgeous Ashkam Mill. Ashkam Mill was a 6-suite post mill originally and built in 1828 on something called the Kingston Ridge. It was probably constructed by the millwright Samuel Medhurst of Lewes, who was responsible for building several other windmills in the area. That original mill was destroyed during a gale in 1916. 3 of the 4 original footings are still in place, and a number of shutter cranks and other iron parts can still be found lying in the field some 90 years after the collapse. The survival of the footings has allowed a good estimate to be made of the dimensions of the mill, and they're very similar to another local mill, namely Gill Windmill at Clayton. The mill you see here today is a replacement, and it's only been here for 15 years. Back in 2007, planning permission was granted to the Sussex Mills Group to reconstruct the original mill as residential accommodation, on the condition that the new building would be environmentally friendly. A steel frame was constructed in early 2009 and the wooden cladding attached a year later. By the end of 2010, the tail pole and reel steps had been fixed. The whole structure was then painted white and the mill turned on its axis for the first time. It might not be grinding corn anymore, but I'll tell you what it is doing. It's generating electricity for the national grid. Well, if you're going to build a windmill on top of a hill, it's a really good place for it. It gets quite windy up here. It's quite calm at the moment, I must say, where I'm standing now, and peaceful too. Also, very beautiful. If I turn the camera around here, you can see the view I've got into the downland, which is just to the west and south of Kingston. And that is a beautiful view this morning, let me tell you, with the sun rising in the background. Absolutely fantastic. We can't stay here for too long, we've still got a village to cover. So now we need to head back down the Jugs Road again, and this will take us down towards the village again. Let's see what else is in Kingston. Now let's walk along Kingston Ridge, after which this road is named. It's a short side street that takes you to the western extent of the village before eventually becoming a public right-of-way. Kingston Ridge's houses were all built between the 1930s and 1950s. They were the start of what would become a big housing estate that accounts for most of Kingston's population today. We're literally walking here in the footsteps of ancient women by using this road. Kingston Ridge follows the route of the Jugs Road, which can be followed on foot all the way to Brighton. It's named after the fish-carrying baskets once used by Brighton fishwives on their way through Kingston to the market at Lewes. Let's define what a fishwife was. In this context, the word wife means woman rather than a married woman, although typically a fishwife was the actual wife of a fisherman. Her job was to sell her husband's catch. Some wives and daughters of fishermen were notoriously loud and foul-mouthed as they sold their fish in the marketplace. That's where the expression "to swear like a fishwife" comes from. Among the reasons for their outspokenness were that their wares were highly perishable and lost value if they weren't sold quickly. The volume of their voices and the, shall we say, colourful language was to draw the attention of the customers. The women in question would often have to fend for themselves while their husbands were away fishing, and this made them strong and self-sufficient. The Jugs Road crosses a block of downland that's been described as one of the brightest jewels of the South Downs. Running out of Lewes through the western end of Kingston and right the way to Newmarket Hill, walking the road is one of the best activities you can do in these parts, and it's totally free. So even though it would have been a fairly direct route between Brighton and Lewes, it certainly wasn't straight, and there's proof of that if you look in the hills in the distance. You can see over there that the Jugs Road winds its way via some bends up to the top of the ridge up there. So yeah, that's the Jugs Road. We are literally walking in the footsteps of ancient women who were carrying fish from the sea to be sold at market. Okay, next job is to go down this footpath here, which is nothing to do with the Jugs Road. It's just a footpath that crosses it. It takes us down towards a housing estate. South of Kingston Ridge and the route of the Jugs Road is that huge housing estate. It was built in the early 1960s on some former orchard land, and today everyone in Kingston simply knows it as the estate. It was developed as a group of family homes, helping to serve the establishment of the University of Sussex at that time. Many of the first residents here were associated with the university. All of this land had previously been used for small holdings and fruit growing, a very different look to what we see now. Mind you, the development of the houses here was complemented by the creation of two large public open spaces, creating a buffer zone between Kingston's historic core and these later developments. The radical reputation of the university influx earned the main green a nickname, the Red Square. It was coined by some of the more traditional locals. That's not its official name. Let's make our way to it and see what it's actually called. Well folks, I can imagine that Kingston near Lewes is not the cheapest place to live in the country, because you get this gorgeous scenery all around you and that adds value to your house price. I wonder what the value of these houses is in the background here, because every morning when people wake up in those, they have this view. They're looking at a massive green which stretches across to the church over there. And isn't that just beautiful? Now this green is like a standard village green, which has all the usual facilities, but it also has something else that it can tell us. The Sussex sport of stool ball is played on here too. St Pancras Green features tennis courts and a cricket ground. This is a fabulous open space which Kingston is proud of, even if it did have that rather interesting nickname once upon a time. In the summer, St Pancras Green supports occasional rounds of the traditional Sussex game of stool ball. If you've never heard that, here's a summary of it. Stool ball is a sport that dates back to at least the 15th century, originating in Sussex. It's considered a traditional striking and fielding sport, and may be an ancestor of cricket, baseball, softball and rounders. The sport has sometimes been called cricket in the air. There is evidence to suggest that it was played as a tradition by milkmaids who used their milking stools as a wicket and the bittle or milk bowl as a bat, hence its archaic name of bittle battle. Stool ball is sometimes referred to as Sussex's national sport. The National Stool Ball Association was formed in 1979 to promote and expand it, and the game was officially recognised as a sport by the Sports Council in early 2008. The game's popularity has faded since the 1960s, but continues to be played at a local league level in Sussex, Kent, Surrey and the Midlands. Some variants are played in some schools. Because it was originally played by milkmaids, it's a female-dominated game, even today. But that said, teams can be mixed. There are mixed leagues in Sussex and ladies-only leagues in Sussex, Surrey and Kent. Now we come to the church which lends its name to the green we've just crossed. This is St Pancras Church, built in the 13th century and protected as a Grade 2 listed building. Made of stone and flint rubble, it comprises a nave, a chancel, a western tower and a south porch. The building was damaged by lightning in 1865 and again in 1874. Inside the church, the communion table is Elizabethan and the chest at the western end of the nave is Jacobean. There are 3 ancient bells in the tower, one of them made by Walter Wimbiss. There's also a chalice and a pattern dating back to 1568, along with a silver alms dish to around 1700. The church also contains a memorial window to the anti-apartheid activist and clergyman Michael Scott. Okay, so we entered this churchyard through a lit gate which goes onto the green. If you were to head through the churchyard and come out of it the other way onto the road, you go through a very special type of gate. There are only 6 of these in the entire country, and they're all here in East Sussex. This is a Tapsule Gate. A type of wooden gate, tapsules are unique to Sussex. It was named after a Sussex family of bell founders, one of whom invented it in the late 18th century. Only 6 examples survive, all within a 10-mile radius of Lewes. Tapsules have the dual advantage of keeping cattle out of churchyards and allowing the efficient passage of coffins carried to and from the church during burials. The name sometimes is used more generally to describe swivelling gates of a similar design elsewhere. This one in Kingston has a central pivot, which locals believe was designed to make it easy for funeral bearers to pass either side. Now we're on the street, and this is the oldest part of Kingston, the original village centre. The street is a picturesque mixture of cottages and larger farmhouses that leads past St Pancras Church and the village pound where stray sheep were once kept. As the oldest part of Kingston, it's along here where you can see the original village farms and houses which were built centuries before the newer stuff that we've just walked through. It was from this central core of the village that farm workers walked to work in the village fields or those of the neighbouring settlements such as Swanborough and Iford. There are 2 landmarks of note along here. One of them is the village hall. Officially known as the Parish Hall, this was given to the village by Sarah Hillman in memory of her husband Aubrey. The foundation stone was laid in 1914 and the hall opened 1 year later with a celebration concert. This was followed into and through the 1930s with numerous further plays and performances by the Kingston players. The hall was taken over by the army during World War II, leaving it in need of serious decoration. It was eventually redecorated in 1953, a project that was funded by social efforts and a few loans here and there. By the late 1950s, the village was beginning to outgrow the hall and it was in desperate need of repairs again. In 1957, the parish council decided not to take any further responsibility for the hall, and thereafter it was run by the parochial church council. At a public meeting in 1964, the hall was placed into the hands of the Charity Commission, and a charitable trust was created made up of representative members for each of the parish council, the parochial church council, and the Women's Institute. Extensions to the hall were completed in 1968 that included toilets at the front, a kitchen on the side, and a new back room. Today, in addition to providing facilities for local clubs and associations, it houses Kingston Preschool and other educational groups. It's available to all residents of Kingston for private functions. The stage and its lighting options provide for entertainment and performance activities, and in more recent years, audio-visual equipment has been installed too. Okay, outside the village hall we have a parish notice board. Now I imagine there's going to be a lot of people out there in East Sussex who've never seen me before, because this is the first one I've touched in this county. When I come across a parish notice board, I put one of these cards with my logo on it right there onto the notice board to let people know that I've been to the place. So we'll do that here in Kingston near Lewes. There we go. Job done. The other thing you can't miss along the street is the local pub. This is called the Jugs, again in reference to the basket that the fishwives carried their husbands' catch in. The pub's sign even shows an image of a fishwife and several jugs around her, in her hands and on the floor. They were sort of like wicker baskets or buckets, I guess. The Jugs pub in itself is really notable because it was originally a 14th century cottage. Behind the pub is the second of those two green spaces created when the estate was built in the 1960s. Okay, so from that wildlife garden that you've just seen, you follow a path that passes some more houses and it brings you to this set of steps, and this leads you to the school where we started. That's the complete circuit of Kingston near Lewes. But we're not quite done with this one yet, because this road you can see in front of you here, this has a few more bits and bobs. So we'll hop in the car and we'll drive southwards now towards the next one. East of the village towards Iford, Well Green Lane runs for around half a mile before turning sharply southwards. On the bend is Lewes Garden Centre, which has been thriving in the South Downs since 1990. In 2019 it became part of the British Garden Centre Group. The centre used to be a retailer of fruit and vegetables, specifically tomatoes, but now it provides a modern garden centre experience. With a wide range of products including a large plant department, gifts, homeware and furniture, it caters to all garden and home needs. It also has something called the Gardener's Retreat Restaurant, which has a beautiful view of the plant department, creating a relaxing dining atmosphere. Lastly, it's the second of Kingston's 2 schools. This is Owlswick School, which is very different from the one where this video began. Owlswick is a residential special school established in 1981. It provides specialist education to young people with social, emotional, cognitive and sensory needs, or those who may have neurodiversity or complex trauma. It's registered for up to 11 students, both male and female, between the ages of 10 and 19. The school is housed in a separate building to its residential provision and uses the grounds to provide learning and recreational opportunities that supplement its classroom-based activities. The school's aim is to enable young people who have experienced difficulties and disruption in their lives and education to feel valued, secure and successful. Folks, we are done with the first one in Lewes, and if they're all like this one, I'm really going to enjoy the rest of the week. What a brilliant start. Come back tomorrow for more as we start to work our way towards New Haven via the River Ouse. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.